You know, you have to kind of admire that no matter how much time has passed, Sir Kristen Cole can be super petty. Years have passed. He's banging the crap out of Lady Hightower, but he still has the time to call Queen Rhaenyra the whore of Dragonstone. That petty. It don't end. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Fourth episode of House of the Dragon Season 2 is here. It is called The Red Dragon and the Gold. Directed by longtime Game of Thrones director and House of the Dragons, Alan Taylor. We get our first big action beat in this. There's some story beats that occur, but the last third of this episode is pretty much all action, so there's not a lot of story beats that happen. There's story pieces to it, but not a lot of dramatic pieces that occur in there. People have been clamoring for it. People have got it, so this is it. Bring me the dragons. We get about 3 in this episode, which is fun. Kristen Cole has put a plan afoot, and it sort of bites him in the butt. We'll get to that right at the end. This episode begins with Daemon still rummaging around Harrenhal and sort of getting nightmare after nightmare after nightmare thrown upon him. He is now having a nightmare where he talks to young Rhaenyra again. Millie is back for another episode. Young Rhaenyra again. He cuts off her head. And it's sort of a symbol of how much he wants to be her. He wants to take that from her. He can't because he kind of also loves her. But that quest for power, that hunger for the crown is weighs heavy on him. He's just having a grand old time with nightmares. He awakens to find that more allegiances have been made in Aegon's favor. Kristen Cole is doing his trek across the land to just gain more and more folks, and avoiding Harrenhal, although he's been told to go there. And what keeps being reiterated here at Harrenhal is that the time to create an army is dwindling. And if Cole is doing everything to sort of gain many more masses, we don't have much time before we're just going to be SOL out of being able to recruit anybody else. Rhaenys goes to meet Corlys. While she is there, she runs into the sailor that plucked him from the waters, plucked him from his death. And she knows that. She's gotten that story, but she also sort of can see in him who he is the true heir of. And she sort of checks Corlys about it, but she doesn't really get into it. She's like, hey, bet your mother was gorgeous. That's all I'm going to say. But I know this face. So at that point, the Corlys asks Rhaenys, like, hey, where's Queen? Where's she at? And Rhaenys is like, she's probably doing what I sort of wanted her to do. She's probably doing her best to try to pluck us from plunging headfirst into a war. She's right. That's what she was doing. It's here that we sort of learn that Rhaenyra left without really telling anybody. Her counsel, Rhaenys, she really gave no one a heads up outside of her new friend who basically helped her get there. So yeah, she has no one really knows where she's at, which is kind of a messy thing to do, but especially where she was heading. She gets checked for it by her son. Archmaster Orwell makes Alicent some of that good old home-fashioned abortion tea. But she claims it's for a girl. It's not for her. Orwell doesn't question it. He's like, well, I hope the girl who needs help, if she needs anything else, needs assistance, because this can kind of have an effect on the gut, call me. She's like, I will let the girl know, but I will be there with her. It is not quite clear if he is aware who this is going to, and that is going to Alicent, and nor does he question it. He's just kind of like, I'm just doing my duty. I'm going to hand this off. But in that, Alicent sort of says, hey, did my husband, Viserys, ever tell you who he wanted to be the heir? And Orwell was like, I got no clue. That was above my pay grade. We never had those type of conversations. Alicent's like, okay. I think it's clear that Alicent in this episode is having a lot of like, let me see if what Rhaenyra said is correct. Let me look at these history books. Let me look at these stories, see if I can find the story of Fire and Ice to see if I have put my horse behind something that was just a dream story, like just some history story. Once Orwell takes off, she takes that bad boy to the head, getting that cold diseased kid out of get out of her quickly. We then switch to Cole, who's marching through the lands and just claiming bodies. If you don't stand up against Queen Rhaenyra and you don't pledge your allegiance to Aegon, we're going to murder you. If you do, cool, you can be a part of our army, and we'll just gain folks. And there are a lot of people. Some people stand up, some people don't. Those that don't are killed, and they seem to be strategically taking over small castles that don't really mean that much of the war, but who have an attachment to somebody that is on Rhaenyra's council. And so Lord Darkland, who has a person that is on Rhaenyra's council, spits at him, calls Kristen like, "You are scum. You ain't," basically calls him out his name, and still hangs tall that he's all on Rhaenyra, and spits on him, and then gets beheaded for it. So he is still hanging on for Rhaenyra, but he loses his head for it. We see it, the council at Dragonstone is having a meeting, but Rhaenyra is nowhere to be found. And Baylor comes back and says, "Hey, I've seen where Cole is heading. He's heading what I believe to be west, but I can't really make it out because they keep moving. They are only moving in darkness. When they move in darkness, I can't see them." Council's like, "You should have burned him when we had the chance." Again, that was not Rhaenyra's wishes, but they are doing everything possible to be like, "Where is she? Where is Daemon? Like, where's your father?" Like, we have nothing. We're sitting here idle while Cole is gaining more and more folks. We need to put out a dragon right there now and start firing on these folks. They're ready to fire on all cylinders. Rhaenys starts speaking up and is like, "Hey, I think we need to stand still. Let's wait." Rhaenyra's son even checks a couple of people on council, like, "You need to watch your tongue. Like, you hold on." But in that, they sort of like, "Why are you talking, Rhaenys? Like, nobody put you as the person to speak for him, and respectfully, Prince, you either." It's at that point that Corlys shows up, and they all sort of have a respect and honor for him, which is funny because Corlys has no more of a say than the rest of them. The only people that they should be listening to, and they mention it, is Queen Rhaenyra and Daemon. If either of them aren't doing the orders, they should still, if they're going to be as braggadocious to the kid, to the prince, and to Rhaenys, they should feel equally as braggadocious to Corlys. They don't. We see that Cole is aiming to head to Rook's Rest. That's his plan. That's what he's doing, and he and Aemon have sort of put a plan afoot to set up a mission to go there. Whereas Aegon believed that they were heading towards Harrenhal, and that's where he wanted them to go. He basically didn't want Daemon to win or get anything. They all know that Daemon has sort of gone there to win that castle over. So on the council for Aegon, he's sitting there and he's like, "Well, what are we doing?" He feels like he's not being kept abreast of what's happening. He feels like he's being sort of undermined and people are doing things in the shadows without him. And he's not wrong. Aegon wanted Cole and the army to go to Harrenhal. They did not. They're heading to Rook's Rest. And like, "Well, hold on. Who said Rook's Rest?" And Aemon's like, "Well, Cole and I have been discussing back and forth, and that is where he's going." And Aegon's like, "Well, why is he talking to you and not to me? Why am I not being kept in this?" And Aemon sort of checks Aegon in front of the council, but does it in a way where it's a language. It's not their first language. It's sort of a hidden language for them. But unfortunately, I would imagine that the majority of that council also knows what it is. But he does it a little bit to not quite slap his brother / king in the face in front of everybody. It gives him a little bit of respect to say, "I'm going to do this as secretly as I possibly can. But do you really know what the hell you're talking about? Do you really know what we're doing at the war? We are the war folks. We are the council you should be listening to. Calm your ass down, sit down, and let the big boys do what it is that we're doing." Aegon eventually succumbs to what Aemon says, and Aemon's like, "Well, here's the deal. Let Daemon have Harrenhal. Let him go mad there. There's not much there. Larry Strong, who is also on the council, kind of says like, yeah, there's nothing there. Anybody who is there is going to just go mad from the diminishing returns that castle is going to bring them. So have at it." She's like, "Yeah, let him go there, and we're going to move and try to secure more defenses in smaller cities, smaller areas nearby." Loras goes to check in on Allison and sort of puts two and two together that, "Hey, I'm surprised to see that you were on that council." And then he sees that a good old abortion tea, the cup is just left out in the open. He puts two and two together. I'm sure there has been whisperings probably around the whole by the keep that, yeah, Cole is the one banging out her back, and that's why she wasn't where she was supposed to be. No, why while Cole was on watch. But Lars is quickly sort of putting two and two together. He's also sort of seeing that, hey, you haven't quite been yourself as of late. And he clocks some of the history books that Allison is reading. Allison clearly is doing it because Rhaenyra sort of put the seed in her head. Like that story of Aegon the Conqueror and the Fire and Ice comes from a whole story that Viserys always had. But Lars is sort of putting that together and saying like, hey, are you starting to second guess that Aegon's the rightful heir? Viserys knew that if he put a woman on the throne, that this was going to be the outcome. And Allison's kind of like, I'm just doing my due diligence and just looking at history. Like, no, I'm fully behind Aegon. He is the person, but I'm just reading up on stuff. We, as an audience, know that she is rightfully sort of just checking up to see if, like, hey, crap, is he the rightful heir? And with her questioning and asking people, like, hey, did he say anything to you? Did he say anything to you? She is 100% in her head and second guessing things now. Daemon continues to stay paranoid in that paranoid ass castle that he is in, and gets another dream. In this dream, he is chasing what appears to be Aemon with a one eye and whatnot. He's chasing him with a sword out at the sheath, drawn to the ready, and he sees that it's actually himself with an eye patch. He's chasing himself, which is another probably metaphor that is all he's just in this rat race, and he can't get out of his own way. And he meets Alice Rivers, who is a weirdo, to say the least. That isn't Aaron Hole. She's a bastard, but she's a smart one, and she's a master of looks like spells and drinks and potions and whatnot. But she sort of just calls Daemon out. It's like, you are a wild boy to just be running around this castle with your sword unsheathed. What is that going to do? And she sort of chin checks him about like, hey, you are here because you got into an argument with your wife, with the queen, who sort of usurped you, and probably makes you feel a type of way. You used to bounce her on your knee when you were a kid, and now you are answering to her, and she's the person that's at the throne. That probably doesn't make you feel the best, and you probably have a lot of ill feelings in your head about it, having some wild dreams about it. She offers him a drink to help him get sleep, and hesitantly, he eventually takes it, and then he wakes up or comes to at a council meeting with trying to secure more folks from for Queen Rhaenyra. But he then also sees a maiden who is pouring liquid for them all. I think it's water, maybe some type of drink. And he clocks his deceased wife, Lena. So that whole Harrenhal place is just putting the hee-haw on Daemon. He is not going to be in a good way when he comes up out of there. Aegon gets all petulant like a little spoiled brat and claims boredom at the council, when in reality he's getting sick and tired that everybody's sort of making rules and decisions without sort of checking in with him. So he storms off and then goes into a study where Allison is there. And Allison's looking for more books to kind of just put all the story that Viserys has together to see if she can pinpoint where the story came from. The books are gone. And she asked Aegon about him. Aegon's like, I had them removed. She's like, so you had history that from your father taken out. She's like, don't. He cleared the room first, so he's not sort of being belittled in front of his kingsmen. But he's like, I didn't burn them. I just had them taken out of here. He then starts sort of wallowing, and his mom can sort of see like, hey, something's wrong. What's up? And he's like, I just don't like the fact that they don't listen to me. Like, we got all these people. I'm the king. They should be talking to me about everything. And Lady Hightower straight up tells him, like, well, did you really think that you gained all the wisdom in the world when you put that crown on? Like, we specifically put people on your council, on your team, around you. We surrounded you with the smartest people of the world so that one day you could be half the king that your father was. If you don't listen to them, then what's sort of the point of having them all there? You're not ready yet. You should take all of this knowledge that you can and absorb it and learn it. These people aren't trying to usurp you. They're trying to make you the best king that you can possibly be. He ain't trying to hear none of that. Once that story is over, he immediately is like, well, cool. I'm just going to go storm off and go take my dragon Stormfire, and I'm going to head over to Rook's Rest because that's where the party is happening. Cole continues to press on to Rook's Rest while Garwin is kind of like, you are mad. Like, why are we doing this? We should be heading, Heron Hall is where we're supposed to be heading. That is what we should be doing. Heading to Rook's Rest is like a suicide mission. We're out in the open. This just doesn't make sense. All because Cole and Eamon have sort of put together this plan that's basically um, smoke signal out a dragon on Rhaenyra's team. He's basically trying to get a dragon to come out to play so that they can take him over. So Rhaenyra returns to Dragonstone and talks to the council, and the council, mainly her son, is speaking to her in a way that is sort of basically checking, like, where the hell have you been? Where have you been? He's not letting anybody know. She lets them know that, hey, I was at the King's Landing. I was trying to talk to Alicent, and they're like, you could have been killed, blah, blah, blah. She's like, yeah, cool. I just need to make sure that without a shadow of a doubt, when we go into this war, there's nothing that I could have done to sort of make this peaceful. I've learned that there is not. So to war we are going. And she is told about Cole's team moving in on Rook's Rest and how they have sort of killed smaller castles, mainly because to get at her and to get at her people on her council. She's like, okay, well, they believe that I won't use a dragon, so let me call their bluff. And so she's like, I'm going to go ride out with my dragon and go out there and head over to Rook's Rest and blow some things up. And her son immediately is like, well, no, I'll do it. She's like, you're not as good of a flyer as me. I will do it. He brings up a good point. He's like, well, you can't be the one to do this, Mom, because if you fall, if the queen falls, what is this all for? This all falls apart. Like, we've lost our spy. You can't be the person to go out there. Rhaenys decides, like, I will be that person. I will go out there and fight and fly on your behalf. And no one objects. So she's heading, she gets on her dragon Meleys, and heads out. So put this all into perspective, Meleys and Rhaenys are heading towards Rook's Rest. Sunfire and Aegon are heading towards Rook's Rest, and Cole is there with his army. And that's sort of what we are believed to be the setup. What was not taken into account by either Cole or Aemond is the Aegon piece of this. That was not supposed to be a part of this. So how this unfolds is as Rhaenys and Meleys are heading towards Rook's Rest, Cole sends up a signal. He's like, hey, send out the signal, let it be known. And we see that Aemond and Vhagar were sort of hiding in plain sight. They're camouflaged because it's green in the trees, and so they could not see him. And so as Rhaenys makes flight, they come up and start making their flight to meet them on a flight pattern. Aemon does check that Aegon is there. He sees that Aegon is there, and he doesn't really give him any assistance. Now, mind you, Cole sees him there, and Garwin's like, well, hold on, your whole plan was to have the king come here? Cole, you can tell his eyes are freaking out. I was like, well, that is absolutely not the plan. Why is he here? So he tries to sort of rally the troops, say, hey, look, our king is out here to fight with us. Let's go. Let's rally. But you know, the whole point is this, like, we're going to lose people here. We're going to lose a lot of army here, but we're going to take out one of their dragons. That's what their goal is for this. So a dance of the dragons sort of ensues. And Sunfire and Meleys start fighting Rhaenys and Aegon's dragons. And it's a pretty decent battle. They're going back and forth. Both of them are getting kind of scratched up. And then Vhagar with Aemon comes in and says Dracarys and sets a blaze on fire. Now, it's important to note that he sort of checks both of them. And Aegon thinks, my brother's coming to help me. Cool, I'm going to get out of this. And then he says the magic words, fire ensues. Aegon sort of taken it back. And he ends up falling. His dragon ends up falling all the way down to a pretty serious fall and plummet. And we see what happens to him a little bit later. But then a battle between just Vhagar and Meleys keep going on, Rhaenys and Aemon. And it's a pretty decent battle. They're going back and forth. It looks for a moment like Rhaenys has gotten the upper hand. We don't see where Vhagar has sort of hidden off to as she's sort of surveying the land after burning up a couple of folks. She then gets attacked from the side. Vhagar comes out and bites the neck of Meleys and pretty much snaps it, and they go falling down. And they take them high up enough so that when they fall, it's going to be a tumultuous, it's not going to go well for them. And so you can see it's just Rhaenys sort of lets go and she falls to her death in a big explosion. And that is both Rhaenys and Meleys are taken off the board. Now, in all of this battle, all of this war, there was a point in time where Cole got knocked out. So as he comes back to, he sees the just sheer turmoil that has occurred. Bodies upon bodies have been torched, burned to a crisp, burned. They did take out a dragon. He sees that part in the distance. But then he sees Aemon. He's like, Aemon, where is Aegon? And he sees that directly in front of him, Sunfire is in a bad way, damaged, and Aegon's not responsive, not moving. He's just lying there in sort of a comatose position. We don't know what his state is. But whatever his state is, it is in terrible enough of a situation that Cole is not going to be on the good side of anybody in history, specifically Alicent, about how this sort of setup went. The plan, everybody said, go to Harrenhal. You chose to do your own thing to set up this plan with Aemon. Now, here's the thing. Nobody in that castle is going to blame Aemon and think that, hey, he did what he did to attack his brother. They're not going to put that on him. It's not going to get pinned on him. But Cole, yeah, you're going to eat that one, bad boy. That's going to fall on you and fall on you hard. And so you could just see the moment where he just had pure fear, like, oh, I am in deep doo-doo. And the very thing that Rhaenyra's council told her not to go out, it's happened to Aegon and his kingdom. He went out there when he shouldn't have been out there, and he failed. He may not be dead, but he failed to a point where he's not going to be able to serve in the way that he once did. And yeah, that's why you don't always put your king and queen out there at first. You let all the other folks do their thing. But I think with this jockeying for position and jockeying for proof that he had worth despite what originally happened and losing, he's so gung-ho of making up for Jaehaerys being killed that he is effing up every which way he can. And this plan is sort of backfired. But that's the episode. A pretty solid battle in the tail end of this. You got to see a good dragon battle. This is something that sort of Game of Thrones never really got to give us, was multiple dragons at once, because by the time we get there, a lot of them are either babies or not there yet anymore. So to get to see three dragons sort of in fight, and three different sizes, like Vhagar is massive. And so to see him as large as he is, but it'll be interesting because we still have Baelor and Queen Rhaenyra's dragons sort of on the board, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. We're probably going to have a pause for a little bit before any more of these battles come, and just the ramifications of what they have to do now that King Aegon is sort of off the board. He may come back, but at least for some time being, he is not going to be useful to anybody. And how that side decides to sort of push on at that time. Probably better as a war, as logistics of doing things in battle and in war, but probably a bigger hit mentally for what that means for all the people that had sort of pledged their allegiance to Aegon. You just can't say, hey, now we're going to go to the next person. I think some of those folks might start flipping over to Queen Rhaenyra. That's the episode. What did you guys think about this one called The Red Dragon and the Gold? We'll leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. Should be called The Red Dragon and the Gold and the Green, but they didn't want us to know the green was there. But yeah, if you haven't already, go ahead. Leave us a comment in the comments below. If you haven't already, follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlready@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.